Hello, welcome back to the Gaming Thoughts and Opinions channel. Today, it's the Comic Book Report, Episode 2. I think that's a good name to call this little series we got going on.
Yep.
Today, we read Flashpoint, written by Jeff Johns. Before we get into like the nitty gritty, I just want to say that I really like this book.
Good.
I liked it more than the one we read before.
The Rebirth?
Yeah, Flash Rebirth. Can you tell me like any background to this before we get into like things that I might not have liked?
It was originally, or not originally, it was set up to be like a consolidation of DC history,
Mm-hmm.
where it would lead into a reboot of the whole continuity. So they could not erase like the 50, 60 years of history, but like make everything singular once again,
Mm-hmm.
instead of how they previously had like soft reboots where some characters were getting their origins changed around and others were the same as they'd always been. It was confusing to keep up with. They were resetting it into what they called the New 52,
Mm-hmm.
where there were 52 #1 titles released like in a month. Or 52 titles released like every month.
Seemed like a pretty big deal.
It was a pretty big deal.
Is it still the same continuity since then?
No. They've reconsolidated the consolidated continuity with pre-Flashpoint and pre-Infinite Crisis stuff into what is the current Rebirth run.
Why?
Because the New 52 was not received as well as they would have liked, and a lot of it had to do with characters were darker, or characters were too different from what people wanted, and so this is like a return to form where it has what people wanted from the older characters, but elements that they loved from the New 52.
Alright. You said darker, and I noticed when you say darker, do you mean just the themes or just the illustrations are more gorier?
Like themes and dialogue, character motivations.
I kind of like that because it had a little bit of darkness in here. Because the whole thing is based around Barry Allen, the Flash, going back in time to save his mother's life, which, I mean, it's kind of fucked up thing to like think about. No one should have to think about their mother's death, especially at the age that he had to deal with that. But the whole story just about the repercussions of changing that one event that happened 30 years in his past or whatever, or even more than that. And I was had low expectations going into this because you're dealing with timeline stuff, and I don't like that. I have many exposure to stories that mess with timelines, but whenever I do cross something that has to try to juggle all these things, it just doesn't end up well. I cite the Zelda timeline; it does not make sense.
Yeah.
Even with Pokemon, they try to make a timeline out of that. It's still whatever. Anyways, I think they did it pretty well. There's only a few things I have gripes with, but I really like how all the characters changed. And I'm not gonna say like with any character changing, like Batman, he changed. Like not only who he was changed, he was instead of being Bruce Wayne, it was
Thomas.
his father. Yeah, Thomas.
Yeah.
Did any character come off as like that wouldn't be realistic or that doesn't make sense to you? Because it all seemed like it made sense to me, but I'm not that experienced in reading it.
I accepted pretty much all of the changes. It's like, well, that's what happens. Like, that's what they're going for, is to show that even something as relatively minor as stopping one murder from happening can change literally everything in the world.
Another thing I don't get, now I think about it, he went back in time and changed one thing. He's been alive for at least, let me say, 30, 40 years, Barry Allen was, in his regular timeline.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever tell him about the butterfly effect? Like, I learned about that when I was like 10. Like, that's not okay, I don't know. That seemed like one thing that could, if somebody told him about that, or maybe he did know, and then that kind of like unravels his whole motivation if it completely changed the world like that. But another thing, towards the end, well, at the end, after he went through that whole story arc and he wanted to go back to his regular timeline, he just raced through time, or whatever he did. He transferred on the cosmic treadmill, pushed off the other version of himself that wanted to go back,
Yeah.
and he went back to his original timeline. It doesn't make sense in two ways. because if he pushed off the old self that wanted to go back to save his mom, there should be two Barry Allens in the second timeline, in the Flashpoint timeline, because there should be another branching timeline where he saves them, but in that regular time. Okay, not explaining this, it doesn't make sense to me.
So you've got the regular timeline and then the Flashpoint time. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
yeah. There
Okay.
should be, if he goes back to change the past, there should be two Barry Allens in the Flashpoint present, because that happened in the alternate universe, did it not?
No.
Because I wouldn't bring it up as a point, because he didn't go back in the past to change what he didn't let his mom die. He didn't go back and change the past again. He just went back to the original timeline. So I'm just thinking there's a bunch of different timelines. He could just choose where he wants to go.
I'm trying to think how to put this. The reason there aren't two Barry Allens is because it's the same Barry Allen in the same timeline, technically, but he's changing one thing about his childhood,
Okay.
which was that in the original timeline, his mother died. He had a messed up childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Flashpoint, same timeline, but instead of his mother dying, his mother lives and he has a happy life. But then the Flashpoint timeline, the actual one where everything is different, it's more of like a loop, like a reconnection, because it reconnects to, because there's the main timeline and then Flashpoint, but then it comes back to the main.
Well, let's put it in simpler terms, in video game terms.
Okay.
Is it more like overriding your save when he changes the past, or is it more like creating a new save file when he rewrites the past?
Kind of like overriding.
Overriding.
Save.
Okay. So there's two ways: the overriding or making a new save. If he overwrites it, it doesn't make sense for him to go straight back to the regular timeline after he experiences Flashpoint. To me,
it's not exactly the regular timeline, but I get what you're saying.
I don't.
Yeah.
They barely, like, when he went back, they barely showed anything. So I'm assuming that everything was the same before he changed the past.
Kind of similar. There were minor differences.
Was there a book after that? Like,
no.
No.
Well, yes, but not exactly dealing. Just you continue.
All right. Well, that was a confusing thing to me. One of the few confusing things, but I'm gonna go back on the positive side. I like how they didn't spend much time explaining the world, that, like, how it changed. It immediately jumps in. The world is in disarray, or one part of the world is in disarray with Aquaman versus Wonder Woman stuff, and they didn't explain, like, much of the backstory. And, like, you had to assume that there's history. And Barry Allen had the same problem. Like, he didn't really know what's going on. He just kind of, and that also goes back to having two Barry Allens, because he didn't know what was going on, but the mother acknowledged him as he was always, like, if he was already there.
That's because it's the same timeline. It's the same Barry Allen.
We're just gonna leave that alone, because I don't think because
there was a weird article, like a Quora answer that I saw.
And it made sense?
It made a little bit of sense.
Well, I'll look at that later.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Post a link. Someone.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, it already made a world that I had to jump into. It didn't spend much time explaining, and all the there's a great thing about comic books. Let's go by so fast, and they're able to tell a good story and very quickly, and it felt very. I was sucked into it. I mean, if I had the attention span to read the whole thing in one sitting, I think I definitely would, because it really sucked me in. But something, I guess it's not negative, something I don't quite understand. And I guess since there's no book after this that really deals with this timeline, what is the effect of Reverse Flash's death? If he died, because you technically never saw his dead body, he just got stabbed.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think back to when he was stabbed. Technically, like, when in the story.
I think it was Aquaman was about to have some big explosion on Earth. I don't know exactly who, but basically shattered Earth in pieces. And Batman was behind Reverse Flash after he was about to kill Barry Allen, I guess. And he came behind him and skewered him, punctured him with some sword.
I'm trying to think of what the ramifications for that are. because they never really touch on it. Because this is still in the Flashpoint
Yeah.
universe, so I'm guessing there aren't really any ramifications.
Damn it.
That it kind of just.
But it should though, because he said he transcends history. So he only has one being, and that's just him floating through history. There's not multiple versions of Reverse Flash because
Right.
he's detached from all that. So if he dies once, that's it.
But they're never really dead in comics.
But did they ever acknowledge his death? I'm okay with him coming back, but did they ever acknowledge him being
I think
dead?
they did in some New 52 stuff,
Okay.
but I don't know.
Alright.
If he was dead, he wasn't dead for long.
Another thing, there's a lot of superheroes I never heard of. I know some of the superheroes are from a different part of DC universe, like the people from the Resistance, like the Grifter guy and like some big, I forgot his name, some Frankenstein looking dude. No, but there's a whole nother
Yeah,
set.
Frankenstein.
That's his name. Okay, I don't remember all the names, but they had a whole another part of a universe in DC. But some of the people I did not know existed at all. Like, I couldn't find anything about them. Who were the kids with superpowers?
That was the Flashpoint version of Shazam.
Shazam.
There's this kid named Billy Batson who has like the wisdom of I don't know. He has the wisdom of Zeus, the strength of Hercules, the speed of who's the guy with the boots? Hermes? Yeah, the speed of Hermes, and some other. He's got like the powers of a bunch of Greek gods and demigods,
Okay.
and it's usually just the one kid. It's just Billy Batson, and when he says Shazam, he becomes Shazam. He's like a 10-year-old who turns into a fully grown, like basically Superman.
Alright.
But in this, it's a family of like 8 or so kids,
Mm-hmm.
5 or whatever.
Are the other kids, are they special at all?
Yeah, they all have to say Shazam at once to become. Because the Asian kid has the wisdom of Zeus,
Mm-hmm.
the fat kid has the strength of Hercules,
Mm-hmm.
and the powers are split up. Like each kid represents one of the powers, and then when they combine their powers,
They become one person?
much like Captain Planet, and they become Shazam.
Cool. They all stick together like Voltron pieces?
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite.
And I noticed no Wally, no other speedsters. So I guess that's another effect of keeping his mom alive. But why would that be? I'm not saying it's wrong or right to do. Okay, it just didn't happen. But they never touched on that. Like, I don't think he ever questioned why isn't the rest of my little group here. Whatever.
Well, I mean, like his mom never dies, and so then his dad never goes to prison,
Mm-hmm.
and he never has to live with the West family, and so he never meets Iris, or he never falls in love with Iris because they met, they're friends, but he never gets like that connected to Iris, and then he's not that connected to Wally, and it kind of spirals out from there. At least that's what I would assume.
Yeah, they did acknowledge that because he saw Iris in wherever she works, and she was kissing some other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Poor Barry. It's a very bad timeline for that guy. Everything he knows is pretty much gone besides his mom. They're just sad. But where does the story go from here? Is it at the end of this timeline, and basically the writers made this book to show you, hey, everything cannot be alright because the butterfly effect. You don't want to go and change the past. You gotta be happy with the situation you're dealt with right now.
Yeah, that's one moral you could take from it.
But that's all they wanted to show. They didn't want like this is not.
They just wanted to reset the universe.
But how is this a reset though? Like, okay.
Because time, the Speed Force, I don't know. I can't explain how.
Alright. Well, and the little tagline for this book here is everything you know will change in a flash. It certainly did.
It did.
It did. Let's see. I'm looking at my notes. Do I have any more questions? No. Do you have anything to say about, like, what were your thoughts about when you read this?
The book was really good. It was weird having that be like one of my first Flash comic books. I had no idea what to expect going in. I had just heard that this was like the Flash story to read. Um, it was good, and I've heard a lot about it being in the comic book circles for a year or so at that time.
Well, overall, it's pretty good. My overall review of it is that the more if their point was to show you how fucked up changing the past is, they did that quite well, and even the story itself, the ride that takes you on, is very compelling, and it makes you want them to write more about that timeline, because I would like to know more about that war between Wonder Woman and Fishman, Aquaman. Because that seemed pretty interesting, because I don't know if this ever happened in their little timeline, like in their regular thing, but Wonder Woman killed Aquaman's wife
Yes.
and was wearing her helmet.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's something I'll be curious in. I don't really hear a lot about Aquaman. Anyways, what is the next book that you would like me to read?
Crap, I had an idea for it this morning. I can't remember.
Well, you could tell me think. You got
Yeah.
3 days until we meet again. You come with that book, give it to me. I'll come to you or whatever, and then we'll come make a video about it. Anyways, that's that. Talked about Flashpoint. So next time we'll do whatever. Same thing. It's been the comic book report.